I never thought that losing my wife and my best friend would make me a millionaire. If you had told me that sentence a year ago, I would have laughed in your face and asked what kind of motivational bullshit you were reading. Back then, I genuinely believed I had already won at life. A stable marriage, a loyal best friend, a solid career, a house that finally felt like home. I thought betrayal was something that happened to other people, the ones who ignored red flags, rushed into marriage, or trusted the wrong crowd. I was wrong. My name is Michael. I'm 39 years old. My wife was Sarah, 35, and my best friend, the man I trusted more than anyone outside my marriage, was Andrew. Andrew and I met almost 15 years ago. Same university, same program, same broke years where we survived on cheap beer and unrealistic confidence. We built each other up from nothing. When my first startup failed, he was the one who dragged me out of bed and forced me to keep moving. When his father died, I sat with him at 3 a.m. saying nothing because silence was the only thing that made sense. He wasn't just a friend, he was family. When I met Sarah, Andrew was there from the beginning. He teased me for being too serious with her. Then he helped me pick out the engagement ring. He stood next to me at the altar. He gave a speech about loyalty, trust, and brotherhood that made half the room emotional. I wish I could erase that moment from my memory. Sarah and I weren't perfect, but I truly believed we were strong. We didn't scream at each other. We didn't betray each other. We didn't play games. We built a routine that felt safe, predictable, adult. She worked part-time from home. I worked long hours, sometimes far too long, but I told myself it was temporary, that I was building something that would eventually give us freedom. Andrew had what he liked to call a flexible schedule, which really meant he could show up any time. And he did. At first, it felt completely normal. Andrew stopping by to grab coffee, Andrew helping with things around the house, Andrew just checking in because he happened to be nearby. Sarah always seemed happy to see him. Too happy, maybe, but I trusted both of them so completely that the thought never fully formed. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't begin with a single reckless decision. It begins with comfort. Looking back now, the signs were there, hiding in plain sight. Sarah started caring more about how she looked during the day, not when we went out together, not for date nights, but random weekdays when I was at work. New perfume, carefully styled hair, clothes she used to say were too much for staying at home. Andrew stopped texting me during work hours. No more memes, no more casual check-ins. When I reached out, replies came hours later, short, vague, busy, caught up. The house itself started to feel staged, candles lit without occasion, music playing softly when I walked in, clean sheets changed more often than necessary. I told myself Sarah was bored, or restless, or just going through a phase. I never once asked myself the most important question. Who was all this effort for when I wasn't there? My routine never changed. That was their advantage. Every morning, I left around 8. Same goodbye, same kiss on the cheek, same drive safe. Every evening, I came home after 7, sometimes later. They knew exactly how my life worked, how much time they had, and without realizing it, I was making it easy for them. That Thursday started like every other one. Same alarm, same shower, same rushed coffee while scrolling through emails. Nothing about the morning felt important enough to remember. If anything, it felt forgettable. Just another day I was willing to trade away for the future I kept telling myself I was building. The first meeting got canceled around noon. That almost never happened. The second one followed an hour later, a client delay. Nothing dramatic, just suddenly empty space in my calendar. I stared at the screen for a moment, feeling something close to relief. I couldn't remember the last time I'd had a free afternoon without planning it weeks in advance. By 4:30 p.m., I was driving home. Early. That alone felt wrong, like I was breaking a rule I didn't know existed. The streets were brighter than usual, traffic lighter, the radio low. I remember thinking how strange it was to see the neighborhood alive, kids playing, people walking dogs, things I usually missed entirely. I didn't text Sarah, not because I was hiding anything, because I didn't think I needed to. Turning onto our street felt oddly calm, familiar, safe. Then I saw Andrew's car. For a split second, my brain refused to register it. I actually looked away and then back again like the image might correct itself. It didn't. It wasn't panic that hit me first. It was confusion. Why is he here? Did they plan something? Did I forget something important? Trust is creative. It works overtime to protect the people you believe in. I parked farther down the street since the driveway was blocked. Even that felt normal. Inconvenient, but normal. Nothing about the moment screamed danger. The house looked exactly the same as always. Curtains half open, lights on, no tension in the air. Inside, the smell hit me before the sound. Fresh coffee, Sarah's perfume, something else, familiar but not mine. I noticed it without understanding why it mattered. Then I heard voices, not raised, not rushed, comfortable. Her laugh reached me from the living room. I stopped walking. It wasn't the laugh she used with neighbors or coworkers. It wasn't the tired one she'd been giving me at night. This was lighter, freer, the kind that comes out when you don't feel watched or careful. Andrew's voice followed, calm, easy, like he belonged there. That's when something shifted in my chest. Not fear, not anger, recognition. They weren't whispering, weren't hiding, weren't expecting me. I stood there longer than I should have, keys still in my hand, listening to the rhythm of a life that clearly continued without me. Every second felt heavier than the last. And for the first time, a thought formed clearly enough that I couldn't push it away. This isn't accidental. Whatever was happening in that room wasn't new. It wasn't spontaneous. It had structure, routine, confidence. They had built it around my absence. I took a breath and stepped forward. And the moment I crossed that threshold, everything I thought I knew about my life collapsed quietly, without noise, without warning, and without mercy.
They didn't notice me right away. That detail stays with me more than anything else. I stepped fully into the living room and stood there for a second that felt stretched out of time. The room looked exactly the same as it always did. Same couch, same coffee table, same framed photos on the wall. Nothing was overturned, nothing was out of place, and that normality made it worse. Sarah was sitting on the couch, turned slightly toward Andrew, one leg tucked under her, the other resting comfortably on the cushion. Andrew was close, too close. His arm rested along the back of the couch behind her shoulders, not touching her directly, but close enough to make it obvious that space no longer mattered. They weren't rushing, weren't tense. They were at ease. Andrew's jacket was draped over a chair like it had been there for hours. His shoes sat neatly by the door, exactly where mine usually were. That image hit me harder than anything else. The quiet confidence of it, the assumption that this space belonged to him too. Sarah was smiling when she spoke, not performing, not forcing it, just relaxed, the version of her I hadn't seen in a long time. Then she looked up. For a brief moment, her expression didn't change. Her smile stayed where it was, like her mind needed a second to catch up with what her eyes were seeing. Then everything drained from her face at once. The room went completely silent. Andrew turned next. His body stiffened instantly, like someone had cut the sound in the middle of a sentence. He stood up too fast, knocking his knee into the table.
"Mike," he started. I raised my hand. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just enough to stop him. "Get out of my house." My voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It sounded distant to my own ears, like it belonged to someone else. Andrew froze. He looked at Sarah first, not at me. That look passed between them in a split second. Familiar, shared. I recognized it immediately, and that recognition hurt more than anything else. He grabbed his jacket, slid his feet into his shoes, and headed for the door. He muttered something under his breath, an apology maybe, but he never looked at me. When the door closed behind him, the sound echoed through the room louder than it should have. Sarah broke down immediately. She stood up, hands shaking, words spilling out faster than she could control them. She said it wasn't what it looked like. She said nothing crossed a line. She said she didn't plan any of this. She said she felt lonely. She said she didn't know how it got this far. I listened without moving, not because I believed her, but because I needed to hear how she explained it to herself. When she reached for me, I stepped back. "You didn't stumble into this," I said quietly. "You built it." She stopped talking. I walked past her up the stairs and into the bedroom. I closed the door behind me without locking it. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall, feeling something inside me drain away slowly and completely. That night I didn't sleep. I lay there fully dressed, listening to her move around the house below me, opening drawers, closing doors, crying softly, then going quiet. Every sound felt distant, like it was happening in someone else's life. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, a realization settled in, calm, cold, and final. I wasn't going to argue, going to beg, and I wasn't going to let either of them decide how this ended. That was the moment anger disappeared, and something far more dangerous replaced it. I remembered all of it. When she finally stopped talking, she waited for my reaction. Her hands were clenched together in her lap. Her eyes searched my face for something, anger, mercy, confusion, anything that would tell her what came next. I took a slow sip of coffee. "I need time," I said calmly. "I'm not throwing everything away in one night." Relief washed over her face instantly, too fast, too complete. She nodded eagerly, promised space, promised transparency, promised counseling, promised she'd cut Andrew out completely. That was the moment I understood something important. I had all the control, because people who are truly sorry don't look relieved, they look afraid. I went to work like normal that day. I didn't cancel meetings, I didn't explain anything. From the outside, nothing about my life had changed. Inside, everything had. I stopped seeing Sarah as my wife. I started seeing her as someone who had underestimated me. Over the next few days, I watched quietly. I noticed how messages were deleted too quickly, how Andrew stopped showing up but didn't disappear entirely, how her phone never left her hand, even when she was in the room with me. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse her. I waited, because the truth has a habit of surfacing when it thinks it's safe. And Andrew? Andrew made the mistake of believing I was still his friend. 2 days later, a message appeared on my phone. "Mike, I'm really sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long moment before replying. "Yeah," I wrote. "Let's talk." That message didn't bring closure. It started the end. After everything that happened, there was a strange stretch of time where nothing felt real. The house was quiet, too quiet. Sarah moved out without drama, boxes, short conversations, long silences. Andrew disappeared from my life completely. No final message, no explanation, just absence, the kind you earn. Work continued, meetings, emails, deadlines. From the outside, I looked functional, responsible, normal. Inside, I felt detached, not broken, just disconnected. One evening, about a month later, I stopped by a gas station on my way home. No reason, habit. I stood in line, half listening to the radio, staring at nothing in particular. Near the counter, there was a display for lottery tickets. I don't play the lottery, never have. But that night, I laughed quietly to myself and thought, why not? Not hope, not belief, just impulse. I bought one ticket. That was it. I went home, tossed it on the counter, forgot about it for days. When I finally checked the numbers, I did it casually, almost bored. I remember standing in the kitchen, phone in one hand, ticket in the other, already prepared for nothing. Then I checked again, and again. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just sat down. $1 million. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I didn't celebrate. I stared at the wall for a long time, feeling something unfamiliar settle in. Freedom. Not the flashy kind, the quiet kind, the kind where choices stop feeling like traps. That money didn't fix what happened. It didn't erase betrayal or rewrite memories. But it changed something fundamental, the direction of my life. I paid off everything, left my job, took time, traveled, thought. I rebuilt on my terms. New city, new routines, new people who knew nothing about my past. I learned how peaceful life becomes when you stop over-explaining yourself. Sometimes I think about Sarah, about Andrew, not with anger, not even sadness, just distance. Losing them didn't make me lucky, but it removed what was holding me in place. I never thought that losing my wife and my best friend would make me a millionaire. But it wasn't money that changed my life. It was the moment I stopped protecting people who never protected me back. And everything after that? That was just the bonus.
It didn't take long for the past to catch up with me. A few months after everything settled, after the city changed and my life finally felt quiet, I got a message from a number I hadn't seen in a long time. Sarah. At first it was casual, almost harmless. Hey, I heard you're doing really well. Someone mentioned you moved. Hope life's been treating you okay. I didn't reply. Then the messages changed. She said she'd heard about the money, about the win, about how lucky I was. She joked about it at first, like it was some shared story we could laugh about now that time had passed. Guess things worked out for you, huh? I still didn't answer. A week later, she tried a different approach. She apologized. Not directly, not clearly, the way people do when they want forgiveness without admitting what they did. She said she'd made mistakes, that life had been hard since we split, that things didn't turn out the way she thought they would. Then she said she missed me. Not us, me. She talked about memories, about how no one understood her the way I did, about how what we had was real, even if it ended badly. She said maybe everything happened for a reason. I could see where it was going. Eventually, she asked to meet. Just to talk, she said, no expectations. I agreed. Not because I wanted her back, but because I wanted to see who she was now. We met in a quiet cafe, neutral ground. She looked different, tired in a way that had nothing to do with age, The confidence she used to wear so easily was gone. She smiled when she saw me. I nodded back. We talked about safe things at first: work, travel, life. Then, slowly, she drifted closer to the past, to us, to what we lost. Finally, she said it, that maybe we'd both grown, that maybe now we were ready, that maybe starting over made sense. She mentioned the money only once, lightly, like it didn't matter, like it wasn't the reason she was sitting across from me. But it was. I looked at her and felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no temptation, just clarity. I told her the truth, that the money didn't change me, that it didn't make me forget, that it didn't reopen doors. I told her I didn't rebuild my life just to step back into an old version of it. I didn't walk away from everything that hurt me to return to someone who only noticed my worth after it came with a number attached. She cried, not loudly, quietly, controlled. I paid for the coffee and stood up. She asked if this was really it. I said yes, because the moment I stopped protecting people who didn't protect me back was the moment I stopped going backwards. And this time, I didn't look back at all.